Hello and welcome to the Revolve Commercial Show. In this show, we take a deep dive into commercial property, conversations with experts in the field, education in commercial real estate, and I share examples of case studies of how to master good commercial acquisitions. My name is Mish and I'm the founder of Revolve Commercial, where wealth revolves around you. We've worked with thousands of commercial property owners and have been best known for helping our clients to build wealth, earn great cash flow on autopilot through commercial real estate. If you're interested in speaking with our team to see how we can help you to get your wealth to revolve around you, go to revolvecommercial.com.au.
Welcome to the Revolve Commercial Property Podcast. I'm your co-host, Samantha Riley, and as always, joined by the amazing and expert person in this space, Mish Daniel. How are you today, Mish?
Hey, Samantha, I kind of feel as if I'm very happy that I'm a Pisces because it is raining so much over here. I think you need to be a fish to be living in Brisbane.
Oh, I love it. I'm a bit excited about today because we've got a guest joining us today, Andrew Gemmell, and he is not only an expert in mindset and the shifts that we need to make to be able to get ourselves through, investing, I guess, into commercial property and not feeling the fear and backing down, but he's also one of your clients.
Yep. Andrew and I have been on some fabulous journeys together, and I think we have spoken. Andrew has been on the show before and just sharing his journey in purchasing a commercial property and the trials and tribulations. And Andrew and I were just having a chat, and it was actually Andrew's idea, because he's recognized that what he went through is probably what most people go through, and it's that mind shift of getting from that fear point to actually breaking through the barrier, doing the trials and tribulations and achieving the goal at the end of the day. And I guess it's like anything. I mean, it's like anything that you're going to do that's new. But Andrew's been down the journey. He works in the space. And Andrew, I must say it was very refreshing working with you because you obviously understood the stuff from the inside and the outside.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Sam and Mish. Looking forward to having a chat about it. This came about primarily through an observation. Mish, I went and caught up with you in Melbourne when you were doing your national road trip of sorts, and just observing some of the people that were listening on, and that they're really interested and they want to do something, and they've made the effort to come and listen to yourself and find out more about it. But you could also just tell watching on that most were a little hesitant, and that you couldn't put your finger on it. I probably could a little bit more because it's what I do in my business, or where I work in particular at the moment, helping a number of people that work in the corporate space with this topic, but different context, obviously. And that's where I noticed it. So I thought, well, let's have a chat about it. And I've experienced it, obviously, being a better client of yours. Yeah.
When Mish brought this conversation to the table, I was so excited, Andrew, and I'm really excited for you to dive deep into this because I know this feeling. I know this feeling of, all right, I want to make a change. I'm stepping forward. I'm doing the thing, or I'm taking that first step, i.e. turning up to an event. But then there's that fear of, oh my goodness, what if I get it wrong? What if I don't know what I'm doing? And you get that first little bit of action of, I'm going to do it, and then absolute fear of stop. And that's what you're going to talk us through today. So why don't you start off talking about that initial, I guess, shift that needs to happen to make not just that first step, but to then move into the second part, which is actually making an action rather than just a thought of, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, sure. I think going back lots of steps from an evolutionary point of view, the obvious, I guess, concept or principle to point out is it's all designed to protect us at the end of the day. So we call on it subconsciously to make sure we don't get ourselves in an awkward situation, or we look after ourselves. And that's all about survival, and we want to be around and all that sort of things. So it's fairly deep rooted when you look at it from that perspective. Obviously, modern life is a little different to a couple of thousand years ago, and we've still got the same mechanism. We've just got so much more distraction though at the moment. And so that mechanism kicks in differently, faster, subconsciously. It's very hard for us to hold our attention to shift away from it. So, yeah. So anyway, I think before we go on, it's just to point that out. There's a lot of things going on from where we've come from. So, but in terms of, the primary thing I think before you start, you've got that mechanism I just mentioned. It's the default mode, essentially, protection mode. And so that gets in the way of the things we may want. So we're motivated to go and buy a commercial property, for instance, in the example we're talking about. We can say we're confident we'll do it before we do it, because that's easy to do. We can control our emotions before Mish says, "Hey, Andrew, we found a property here. We've got to hit the switch and go for it," because it's a market where you do have to move quickly, as we found out, because it's a competitive market if you really want to make it happen. So you can have all of those things, but your fear factor is still holding you back. And so the primary thing I would say, Sam, is where is your attention? So if your attention defaults to fear, which it does for a lot of us, then you've got to train that to get out of that. You've got to shift your attention to, well, why am I here? Why did I talk to Mish? What am I trying to set up for the future? And you've got to really stay focused on that. And that's a lot harder to do than, easier said than done, basically.
Andrew,
that's a very
interesting point that you're making about the attention, because you don't mentally think about the fear. When you say attention, I mean, it's something that's probably happening inside of you emotionally. Mentally, you're not cognitively saying, oh, my attention is on the fear.
Yeah, it's mostly subconscious, Mish.
Yeah, it's subconscious. So you're saying, oh, I want this, but it's kind of far up there. I want to get there, and this is what I want, and I'm all excited to get there. So at which point does the fear come into it?
I think the fear's in it right from the start, but you don't think it is. You're really confident, you're motivated and so forth, but it's there 100%, because when you will come up with a practical, well, now's the time for a deposit. If we really make an offer, we're going to put a deposit down. And that can be a really hard wall for someone to walk through or get over or under or whatever you want to call it, because that's when the fear comes to life. That's like you're really doing it. So, and the closer and closer people get and the deeper in they get, they're probably going to be questioning themselves. And there's a lot to, process. You've got yields, you've got location, you've got due diligence, you've got something which has got strong positive cash flow, how long is the lease, you've got to get through legals, you've got to get through financing, etc. All those things they're just, facts that you've just got to tick boxes to and go, yep, this lines up, this lines up, this lines up. But when you don't have your attention on, well, they are just facts, they can become a bit confusing, they can cause a bit of trepidation, a bit of uncertainty, a bit of nervousness, for sure.
Yeah.
And so if you can hold your attention to get to that point where you go, okay, this is fine. This is just part of the process that Mish and I have discussed. Then you'll start to open up, accepting, well, I'm in new territory. This is actually about learning and growth now, as much as it is about buying a property.
So, Andrew, let me ask, you went through this yourself. That fear would have come up for you too. You're talking about putting your attention on the positive. What resources did you lean on, tap into personally to help you to focus on that outcome? Because it's not just as simple as saying, oh, let's be excited about this. Like there needs to be some tangible, resourcefulness happening. So what did you tap into?
I think you've got to come back to evidence as a big one, Sam. So evidence of other people and their success. And their success, they've gone through challenges and breaking through those barriers that we're talking about. So I reflected on that a lot, whether it be Mish's success, other people I know who are very active in commercial property, their success. And then education is obviously a big piece of that as well. Before you step into there, just actually really taking control and responsibility yourself to go, well, what does that mean in regards to positive cash flow? What's it going to mean, a 2-year lease versus a 5-year lease? What's a lease sale leaseback sort of? How does that work? And once you start to understand those things, well, that helps you move forward. So there's some practical things. I think also there are some, just that practice of attention, which I have done work in, which helps. And it's, as Mish has pointed out, it's not really practiced a lot. In fact, we're going the other way. You know, I saw a stat the other day that 70% of our brain energy usage is on spontaneous things because we're so highly connected now. And that is a lot of energy. Just, I don't actually know what it's going into, but I suspect only 30% of it, which is not spontaneous, is really productive for us. So practicing attention, yeah, it may sound impractical, but not enough people do it. And so what's an example of that from a practical point of view? Mish would come up with properties for me. I would go back to, is this what I had envisaged? Is it what I want? But I'm also learning from Mish. So I took a balanced view. And so it stopped me getting nervous. I just focused on the facts. But I still had a vision in my mind of what I wanted. So that didn't change. And yeah, and then I think the final thing is having someone that you trust. It's huge for confidence. And Mish was that person. Yeah. You know, once you start seeing signals of trust, credibility and reliability, there were properties there that Mish said, don't go for. I don't think it's the best thing for you. That just all comes into that equation as well. So that fear can get worn down, but you've still got to be attentive. You've still got to go, what is the objective here? And I know enough knowledge. I've got the right person in my corner. I've seen enough evidence from other people. Yeah, all of that.
Love it.
Yes, it is. It is that fear factor, and I recognise that it's a fear factor for everybody. I try and soften that blow by teaching as much as possible, by explaining the properties as much as possible, and going through the pros and cons. So we always look at the upsides, and we always look at what the risks are. Okay, so the risks and the rewards is really what we're looking at. And if we can see that the rewards are greater than the risks, then we're going to move forward with the property. But explain to us, Andrew, so you're talking about that wall, getting through that wall, and it's all the nuances, and it's really about not knowing what you don't know, and you're relying on somebody else to give you that confidence to move forward to the next step, and to give you the knowledge and the know-how of how to take one step at a time. It's a little bit like a trainer, you know, and you learning along the way. So in your situation, what was it mentally that got you through that wall? So we've got the property, we've got the contract, once you've got to sign that contract and pay the deposit, then you know that game's on. However, we're still giving you reassurance that there is still an out, because you've got a couple of days due diligence, 20 days, 28 days, whatever it is. So there still is that out, but you've already embarked on a journey, which is now a financial journey, because if this property does fall over, it's going to hurt you. So what's the mindset that's going on at this stage?
Well, there's a lot. But to some of your points there, Mish, there's a quote I've got there. Nothing in life is to be feared. It's only to be understood. To your point, as a trainer and a teacher,
there we go. Yeah.
Through that process, you can shift away from this, default fear factor that we find ourselves in, by holding our attention, by seeing all the evidence and so forth. But equally, as you said, you are going through the process with that support. And so it's not only education. Education is huge. Education in the deal is huge as well. They're quite separate. You can go and get yourself educated beforehand, but you can equally have a strong support system during that process. And they're two different things, and they're equally as important. So that's really important. The other part is service. It's communication. And if the communication is strong, we use WhatsApp voice messenger all the time, and it's a system that works for you. You've got a lot of clients. It's a system that worked really well for me and Paula, who we were working with at the time. That helps you really move through the moment very quickly, which is something I will touch on is often with this, where's our attention? The problems come up if we're living in the past. So the past could be, I've been told about 5 people that this didn't work out very well for. It just may have been friends of friends of friends, and they really don't know any context to it. So that can sit there with you. The future can be, this lease will fall over. I don't know, what's this client like? But again, you've got to reaffirm that there is property all over Australia, which is being leased every day to run services for this country. And so you can't get too caught up in the future of dread and overwhelm that you're going to be the one that's not going to happen to. So it's staying very present. So each milestone that you would hit, coming back to your question, what took you through that wall and kept you moving forward, is actually just being very present. Okay, we have to make a decision on point A. The next day, point B will come up. The next day, point C will come up. And you just stay in the moment and present. And I guess the most common analogy would be, you take an Olympian, they've only get that opportunity once every 4 years. They can't be thinking about the next 4 years or what's going to be for lunch tomorrow. They can't think about what happened at the last Olympics. They've just got to think about right now. And it's very similar. But we put some of those sports people and some of those concepts into, oh, that's not me. That's a different world. They're Olympians. It's actually not. It's relevant for every single one of us. And in this context, it's relevant for this property journey as well.
Most certainly is, absolutely. And I think it's quite a big thing to get yourself through that and putting yourself in the present. And I like what you said about taking step by step and getting acquainted with the nuances of the deal, of the property. And it's all about the numbers. I always say it's all about the numbers. If the numbers work, then keep moving, and we deal with those red flags as and when they come up. So, Andrew, moving forward, tell us a little bit more about your attention, what you were focusing on from your perspective.
Yeah, I think there is probably one caveat to all of this, I think, is I'm not saying that everyone should just focus their attention and move through this. There are occasions where our executive brain, where we do a lot of our executive thinking from, prefrontal cortex, it will help us decide not to do something. So we make a decision. And so that can happen. And I think you've got to at least acknowledge that somewhat. But what is a big part of this process is confidence. And the more confident you have that, we're dealing with each event at a time. I've got good support. I've got good customer service. I've got good education coming back to me, that's just only increasing confidence. And that's just all evidence that you can move forward. You just keep moving forward, You're coming right back to the start where we talked about evolution and safety. It's actually helping you feel safe in the process. So the upside I found of commercial property was it is really a team sport. We had Graham on finance. We had Legali on legals. Obviously, there's yourself, there's Paula, there's insurance. I actually really, really enjoyed that part of it, was calling on the team. That actually energized me through that whole process. Once you're in it, because each person along the way would just have their specialization. Say, these are the questions you need to answer. And then it would go to insurance. So these are the questions you need to answer. And your confidence would just grow more and more, and you're there to the point where you're peers sort of in the past. Obviously, it can pop up. So I'm going through re-tenanting at the moment, and that's just another event in the journey. You've got to go through that event if you're going to go down this road. So, the old friend pops up again, but I do the same thing. I go, okay, no, let's just follow the process and,
I'm pleased you mentioned that. I'm really pleased you mentioned that because, I always say to people, I'm a specialist at what I do in terms of knowing commercial real estate. And I've built up a team of people around me. And to be quite honest with you, I know the headlines of how the finance work, but I'm not a finance specialist. So I can't speak to you about, exactly how that works. Likewise, in legals, I'm not a solicitor, but I've been through it enough to know whether it's right or whether it's wrong, and I'm going to lead you in that direction. And that goes for all the professionals, for town planners, for agents, for re-tenanting. I'm kind of like I have the general knowledge of everything, but you have to have, and I think it's like that in any business, where you have to surround yourself by those specialists in order to achieve your goal. And this is definitely a game that you cannot think that you can do alone. And I don't care whether you're talking about a cafe that's 500,000 or a property that's 5 million. It's the same sort of thing. It's the same. You have to go through the same steps to achieve that. So it's great that you brought that up. And yes, definitely a team sport. I like your little graphic of the racing car. The racing driver. The racing driver is just steering the car, but it's the team that gets it on the road.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And they've all got to work well. And I think I'll come back to that point on responsiveness and customer service, because it's a big decision in a lot of people's lives. We're talking money, and that's one thing that most people are quite fearful about and they're uncertain about. And what's the best option? And I've got shares, I've got property, and X, Y, Z. And they've all heard probably the horror stories, and they're all chasing the dream. So, I think with commercial property for me, though, is it's more business orientated than just pure investment. Yes, it is investment, obviously. But I like the fact that it has those business elements to it. And then that comes back to that team side of things. Yeah.
I think that's a really clever analogy to think of it as a business rather than just, I want to do this investment. Think about it as its own separate business. I think that puts you in a different mindset with how to play that out rather than, I'm just going to do this thing on my own. I think that's really clever.
That's exactly the point, Sam. You hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly what I was going to say. You took the words out of my mouth. So, yeah.
See, great minds think alike.
Yeah, and I actually found it starting right at the start again. Yeah, very fearful. All the usual human things that we go through. But by the end of it, I was completely energized. I was like, this is great. Yeah.
I think it gets exciting. You get exhilarated by the thrill of achieving that goal, of getting there.
100%. Yeah. But even during the process, even challenges that came up, so that shifted from, what's this going to mean, to, okay, no, just solve the problem, move on, what's next? Yeah.
And that's a big point, Andrew, that you've just said, solve the problem, because realistic, that's all you're doing when purchasing this property. You're having a look at it and you're saying, these are the problems and we know what the problems are. Can we solve them? Because, it's that old adage in life that if you can solve problems, you can grow faster.
Yeah. And there's not many problems you can't solve. Obviously, there will be some that this could take a lot longer to solve. But look, and that DD period is crucial. Coming back to the practicalities of buying commercial property, that DD period is crucial for setting the scene for those problems and making a really strong, informed decision, thinking clearly. What's it going to look like in terms of make good? What are some of the issues, the moving pieces, the things we have to think about, contingencies and so on. And if you make use of those, that 21 days, 28 days, whatever you may get, it's a pretty important time. Yeah.
Yeah, and make the best of them. And I was going to say about those problems, generally you find that if you can't solve the problem, it's because you're not a specialist in it or you don't have experience in it, but there's somebody else that can do it. There's somebody else that can solve that problem. You just need to find out who works in that space and who that person is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got an example of that at the moment in terms of some make good items coming up. And I've got a friend who was involved at the high end building a lot of Hamilton Island. And so he comes from a construction background. I called on him about a very small detail in the make good process, replacing a pad of cement. He had some great advice for me. I went, fantastic. That's really what I need to know. And we've moved on. So, it can come from anywhere. And so I think coming back to the principle of this is in terms of confidence, moving from fear through to really getting energized. As long as you recognize that you're making progress, you've had some success, and you're putting in the effort, you're very conscious of all of that, that will then really realign. And it realigned for my personal motivations when I reflected on that. So, and that just helps. That's like confidence credits in your bank account. Those things when you can reflect on them. Yeah. So, and all of this comes back to the key motivation that you may have done it in the first place is to build a different future than what you don't want, essentially. And for me, it's passive cash flow, building recurring passive cash flow, not having to rely on the hamster wheel of work, employment, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That was just personal choice to go down this road. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's what it is for everybody is, wanting to move forward, build that property portfolio, passive income, I think that's what it's all about. Let's drill down a little bit about fear and achievement.
Yeah, I think so. Stunning things, in terms of my experience, and it's one property. So, it's not hundreds of them. That's a different ballgame. That's what it's sort of second nature, obviously. But I just, through this process, I became very aware of where my attention was going. So because I was practicing this, I helped in high performance in my work. This is foundational to that in a different context, but it's the same principle. And so, okay, shift things here. Let's not get caught bogged down in this default protection mechanism. Where are we going with it? So you have to be present to do that. You only perform in the present, just one step at a time. You're making some progress. You're having success. You're putting in the effort. And the confidence is building. Got the team around you, which we've spoken about, and staying very aligned. And that, like, when I reflect back on that process from go to woe, that's all the steps for me. It's these pieces came together, which helped me shift my attention from fear to, yeah, we got it. Bingo. We're in. We're in the market, as you might say, Mish, and completed. So, yeah, and learn a lot. Learned loads. So, and can use that moving forward. So, and then we got the result, which shows up obviously as a property and has its own set of metrics and so forth, and has a potential future for that goal. And it all comes together. Yeah. But I think I was lucky, given what I do for a living, that I shifted how I was going to approach this. And so coming right back to the start, when I went and visited you in Melbourne, it's really interesting to observe what others are doing, because you have conversations and you get a sense, just caught a little bit. And that's probably a bit unfair because I don't know the full set of circumstances what any of those people are going through, but it's a very common sort of theme on the surface that you can see. And I'm sure your feedback, given what you do, and other people working in the space would see that as well. Yeah.
Andrew, I've got a question going right back to the beginning. You're talking about being really clear on where your attention is going. How much did you need to be educated or sort of lean on the people around you right at the beginning to get clear on what you thought was possible?
So I did some study before I met Mish through a friend of mine who has bought a lot of commercial property, now runs a fund buying commercial property for investors. So I did two lots of practical pieces of education with him. It was a group setting. There was sort of deal analysis, live deals, going through the process, etc. So going right back to the start, that education piece was a big part of it for me personally. Yeah, you've got other people who don't care about it. I just buy me the property. They're probably people who've just got so much money, fear doesn't come into it. So, yeah. But no, I wasn't one of those. But I'm curious person anyway. I want to learn about what I'm doing. So yeah, so that was big. I have done some study, obviously, and focused on developing my own practice, and that's through all sorts of people. Might be high performance sports psychologists, some of the top ones around the world. I've learned through them. I've done some learning through a guy called Dan DeParney. His focus is really, he wrote a book called The Power of Focus. And then he has this online app, which is a course, and it just makes so much sense. And as he says, not enough people practice it. They're like, we're scrolling, we're, looking at the internet, we're getting pulled from one meeting to the next, we've got to do things for our family. No one really practices focus and attention. And technology is making it worse and worse. So that was another part of it, because my attention went to this topic. It all sort of came together, actually, in a sense, but along those lines. And, you can take the view of, oh, this is scary, or this is a challenge. Which one are you going to choose?
Totally.
So you choose the challenge. Yeah. So we've gone from a situation what some people, they think they probably can, but then the mind gets in the way and they go, I can't do this. I can't do it. I can't pull the trigger. This is, fearful or whatever.
This is probably one of the most difficult spaces for me as the buyer's agent working with the client, because they come into the program and they want, and we solving and we teaching, we solving and we teaching, we solving and we teaching, we showing properties and showing properties and showing properties. And as the realization comes to mind of how difficult this is, they start pulling back and start going back to this I can't. So it's
the default.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's safe and secure.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
So how do we break through? How do we help people when they get to that point and they're looking at these properties and we speaking about the nuances and whatever, the pros and the cons? How do we help people get through this I can't?
I think a part of it, Mish, is making it part of the process, the psychology of it, as much as the numbers and the metrics and the logistics of it. It's somehow it's reminding people that through that journey, okay, so how are you feeling about this? Obviously, this is new for you. It's your first time. It's your first commercial property. You've done a couple of residential, for example. But how are you feeling? This simple question can uncover a lot of things in there. And you go, okay, so what is it that's troubling you? If they say they're a bit nervous, then you can lean on your education element again. You can lean on examples of things that have happened and where there were problems, but we overcame that because we did ABC. Or that's generally not a problem in commercial. So what they might have as a problem, i.e., where is their attention going? They may just not know that it's not a problem sometimes. But if we stay just focused on the numbers and just the metrics, they've got this whole story going on inside their head whilst you're telling them all of that. And they may not be telling you that, but I'm sure it's going to be going on. And so when it comes out of left field that they're out, I just can't do it. It should probably be a surprise, which it wouldn't be for you, Mish. Been a lot of it. So perhaps there's a mechanism in there, in this buyer's advocacy journey, to really help people, just support them as much through this navigating the mental step. And then in time, that it'll just become the new normal. They'll go, okay, I've got the evidence now. Fine.
So, Andrew, you work in the space of mentoring people in business mainly, and you've been through this experience firsthand. What would you suggest from a buyer's advocacy point of view when somebody gets to that point? Do you have any tools in your toolbox that you could recommend or just suggest to our audience when they get to that point?
Yeah, I think it's communicating with the buyer's advocate, actually bringing the fear up, bringing it up. Okay, this is troubling me. I do really think it will help their journey no end, because people can't help you if they don't know what your fear is. And often these psychological fears they stay down the bottom there. They rarely sort of come to the surface. You might get little hints of it. So I think if you're a buyer, it's really just saying, look, it's acknowledging this is a different world. I've never bought a commercial property. I haven't gone into this space. This is different for me. I've got to change and shift my mindset a little, and I'm going to lean on Mish to do it. I'm going to bring up some of my concerns with Mish, and in the flip side of that is your check-ins with people may be that, okay, we know all the facts. We've seen, 3 or 4 properties. We made an offer on the 4th one. How are you feeling? Where are you at? What concerns do you have in this process? And I know you're not there as a therapist, but it's a big transaction for people sometimes, and it's a big shift. Moving from resi to commercial, for instance, that's a big shift for some people. So it's just, and I think if you call it 5 to 10 minutes to talk about those things, and then you overlay your knowledge and your evidence and the specialists that you have in your corner that you work with, those fears will dive down, they'll become present again. They'll go, okay, Mish, that's great. Let's go to the next stage.
Was that a big shift for you?
Yes. The education and the problem solving, piece by piece, certainly helped. But I was working hard to have my attention on challenge as opposed to fear.
Okay.
And I was being conscious of it. I wasn't subconsciously just going, I can't do this. So no, you got to practice it. It's like anything. You just got to practice.
So you've got to
But
practice being mindful and being focused on what the outcome is, in other words, what the goal is.
yeah, or even just the next step. What's the next step? And the next step. And yes, yeah, you obviously, you've got an eye on the outcome. So, which I can talk about now. Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that when those negative thoughts come up, if we keep them hidden in the dark, and this is from both sides, both from the purchaser and from Mish's side, that it's disempowering. As soon as you bring it into the light and say, hey, I'm having this thought, or are you having this thought? All of a sudden it's empowering, because now we can actually do something with that.
100%. And now that's where your attention is. So you can actually deal with it. Yeah. And when you've got experienced people like Mish and others, that helps. It's great. So it's not just finding a property with the right metrics, but it's finding a property with the right metrics, obviously. And it's a supportive process through the transaction as well. Yeah. And I think there would be buyer's agents out there, like any industry, whether it be recruitment, whether it be sales, they're just thinking the numbers. And I'm not being affected if I'm the buyer's agent, because it's not my money. But I just need to do the deals to get my commission for the month and so on. So that's the territory which is it's going to make it a lot harder or dangerous.
Dangerous because I think as the buyer's agent, you're taking responsibility for that person's investment and their asset.
Yeah.
I always look at that and I'm looking at longevity. So, if somebody's looking at this and just saying, I just want my commission out at the end of the day, that is dangerous,
So, Andrew, for someone that's listening to this episode right now and they definitely are thinking about investing in commercial property, and they're listening to this and they're going, yeah, I logically get it, but I'm still fearful. What are 3 really small, practical next steps that you can give them right now to be able to move through this?
The first one would be get clear what you really want, because you just alluded to it, Sam. People hear about it, it becomes a trend and so forth. But so take the time to get clear on why is this right for me. I heard a podcast. I heard commercial property is great. It's going gangbusters, particularly industrial, et cetera, et cetera. You still got to bring it back to yourself. So that's number one is, okay, why is this right for me? Number 2 would be, because it is more complex than resi, is educate yourself. So whether that's formal education or online, or you find the right buyer's agent who can educate you with those key points. And I don't mean a buyer's agent who's going to just stop everything and become an educator and stop being a buyer's agent, but they can overlay it nicely into the journey. So education would be number 2. And number 3, becoming right back to the point of this, is take it a step at a time. You can start small, you can start relative in size to your level of risk or whatever it may be, as long as it's aligned with that first point, this is right for me, and take it a step at a time. Don't try to go too far into the future. You'll just be worried about all the things that go wrong. Sort of drop the stories, gather evidence through friends of things that have happened in the past. That's all good information. Put it in the computer, but don't lament about the past.
I think it's that thing. What you think about, you bring about. So if you focus on all the bad stories, that's all you're going to see. Every time you look at a property, you're just going to be seeing the bad stories. So think about what you think about, because that's what you're going to bring about. Focus on the good stories and how you can make good out of what you're seeing.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. So they're the three things I would say. Yeah.
I love it. So hanging out with the right people, educating yourself. Mish, you've got plenty of resources on your website. Can you just let people know where to go to get all the free resources so that people can educate themselves?
Absolutely. We've got heaps of resources, Sam. Go to the website revolvecommercial.com.au. There's a quick guide. Click on that, takes you through a couple of questions, and if you're happy with the journey that you've been on, book a call. It's a quick 15-minute call. It's just a discovery call with either myself or one of the team members to help you identify whether you'd qualify for properties. We've got free VIP lists, which is lists of properties that go out every single month. There's heaps of education case studies, past experiences. There's an education program. YouTube, we're doing Q&As every single month. Jump onto that. It is gold. If you were to follow and do all the information that I've got out there in social media and on the website, you don't need me.
Except we need the team. We need the team.
You need the team.
So definitely go and hop on, grab those resources, find those people, that right community to hang out with, which is everything that Andrew spoke about today. Andrew, thanks so much for sharing your journey, because I think when people can see that others have done it before them, it gives you so much more confidence. Well, if he can do it, I can do it. Because we think, the gurus are doing it, but just being, here for you, sharing your journey makes it so much easier to realize, no, we can do it.
Sam, there's just one thing that we've started, which is quite fresh and new. We've got meetup groups around the country, so in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Those meetup groups meet once a month, and if you haven't jumped onto Meetup and joining that, come and join us, have those conversations, meet other investors, get involved. Find out, who's doing what, and it's all about people. So that is gold. Sorry, I forgot to throw that one in because it's new.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us. That was great. It's a topic I'm really interested in anyway, obviously what I do. But, when I saw the correlation with this journey, I thought, it's worth having a conversation with. And to your last point, Sam, I think it's important people keep in mind, everyone starts with one property. You've got to start with one. Unless, some people inherit a lot of money, and that's a little bit different. The context is different. But there's a lot of people out there that are self-made, very successful people, just starting with a single purchase. Yeah.
One step at a time, you're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Love it. Andrew, thanks for joining us today. And Mish, thank you for always being here on your podcast and sharing all this amazing information with everyone.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Sam, for co-hosting. Love having you on board. It just makes things that much better.
Have a great time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Revolve Commercial Property Podcast. Don't forget to join our private Facebook group, Cashflow on Autopilot with Revolve Commercial, where we share weekly updates on positive cashflow commercial properties currently on the market and how to acquire them. So go to Cashflow on Autopilot with Revolve Commercial or www.revolvecommercial.com.au.